Hello, America, to our friends around the world, greetings and welcome back to Chapter 4 What Everybody is Saying, an ex FBI Agent's Guide to Speed Reading People by Joe Navarro. We left off at preening. When we are physically and mentally well, we take care of our appearance, preening and grooming ourselves accordingly. Humans are not unique in this regard, as birds and mammals engage in like behaviors. When we are physically or mentally ill, on the other hand, the posture of the torso and shoulders, as well as our overall appearance, may signal our poor health. American Psychiatric Association, 2000, pages 304 through 307 and 350 through 352. Many unfortunate homeless people are afflicted with schizophrenia, and rarely do they attend to their attire. Their clothes are soiled and grimy, and many of these individuals will even fight attempts by others to get them to bathe or wear clean clothing. The mentally depressed person will stoop as he walks or stands, the weight of the world seemingly bringing him down. On an anecdotal note, when I began college long ago, I had a crazy notion because I was studying anthropology of studying homelessness, poverty, and that in order to do so, such as Margaret Mead and others who have gone and lived within the various communities that they were studying and adopted their ways and their culture in order to understand it, more who these people were. I thought in order to understand homelessness, you had to be homeless. And in the subsequent decades, I had the opportunity to actually experiment with that. And instead of having a pre planned, you know, this is what will happen for this period of time objective, instead of it being narrowly defined, I chose the more be like water, Bruce Lee, go with the flow. Um, and that course took me into contact with what Mr. Navarro is describing. The, I interacted with people who refused to do any self hygiene on any level. They refused to shower. Their smell was so bad that you could literally be 25 feet away and know that they were, either near or had been in that space. Um, Two people specifically, well, actually, it's three people specifically, two that cohabitated and a third that didn't. All three repeatedly wear the same clothes, all day, all night, every day, to the point that the clothes, you ever take something out of storage and it's got that layer of dust on it? That was the appearance of their clothing. It was dull, as if it had accumulated a level of grime. Anyway, they weren't unpleasant individuals. They had their issues, but it was compounded that they have chemical dependency issues, excessive drinking and smoking being two of those issues. And because of their aroma, my interactions were limited, but uh, I do know that when they were put into housing and they were had they had to leave because one individual had medical issues that emergency services came and dealt with, which resulted in that individual being placed in a care facility, and the cohabitant was essentially evicted because their name was not on the lease. Um, the, the first individual, I was told by an acquaintance who came across them at a rehab facility, in terms of physical rehab care facility, that their mind was starting to get right because number one, they were taking the medications that they needed. Number two, they were receiving the what 2 to 3 baths by the bath caregivers a week, and number three, they were wearing clean clothes that were being laundered at the facility. This is one of the biggest things that I've uncovered in this deep dive into poverty is that poverty is most impacted amongst those that are essentially mentally ill, lower IQ. Um, I mean, it's not a rocket scientist to figure that out, but until I guess as a society we figure out that hey, we've been doing a disservice by thinking, oh, they just need to pull themselves up. No, they actually have functional issues, mental functional issues. Um, they're going to continue being um, put in these situations. The third individual, last I checked, was currently in a physical rehab facility for having fallen in their home, and also that individual, stringy hair, greasy, unkept clothing, jogging pants, t-shirt, stained, clothing, uh, had no interest in personal hygiene, didn't smell as bad as the first two, but and doesn't smoke, but I don't, I've heard rumors of other issues, chemical issues, but I don't know for certain. All three pleasant enough to interact with, just not aromatic enough that you'd want to stick around for more than a couple minutes. And I just wanted to put that in there because this ties into what he opens up with, that the preening will not be evident in that culture, the lower IQ, the mentally ill, and also the drug culture, which is weird. It will show up in the drug culture, but not in a way that actually benefits them. They will think they're the diamond, and they will even make claims that they are the diamond while presenting as like they just rolled out of a sewer. Anyway, I don't want to get distracted with too much of this. Right now, you're seeing figure 35 splaying out is a territorial display. And over the last decade, you've seen women become violent in attacking men who comfortably sit in a public space and, the legs apart, and because they get offended. I'm not going to get into all that, but this is the ultimate relaxation position. The essentially laying in a chair. Hence the word splaying, which is okay in your own home, but not in the workplace, um, es- especially during a job interview. Yeah. So keep that in mind if you're interviewing. Don't look like that. The phenomenon of poor grooming during illness and sadness has been noted around the world by anthropologists, social workers, and healthcare providers. When the brain is saddened or we are ill, preening and presentation are among the first things to go. Darwin, 1872, Chapter 3, Passim. For example, patients recovering from surgery may walk down the hospital hallway with hair disheveled and in gowns with which their backsides exposed, not caring about personal appearance. When you are really ill, you may lie around the house looking more unkempt than you ever would be normally. When a person is really sick or really traumatized, the brain has other priorities. And preening is simply not one of them. Therefore, within context, we can use an overall lack of personal hygiene and or grooming to make assumptions about a person's state of mind or state of health. So take note of the things that he addressed in this section on preening and incorporate my anecdotal experiences of what I've observed and also catalog and categorize what you've observed. More and more cities, more and more urban areas, and with the prominence of social media, there is widespread displays of examples of people that have been, um, displaced either through economics or through drug action or drug use that have put themselves in a position that they're not doing any self-care or they're doing very minimal. And that could be just a survival thing or it could just be a mental health thing. The next section, torso splays. This ties into the sitting in the chair as if you're laying in it. Figure 35 that I just read out to you. Splaying out on a couch or a chair is normally a sign of comfort. However, when there are serious issues to be discussed, splaying out is a territorial or dominance display. Teenagers, in particular, will often sit splayed out on a chair or bench as a nonverbal way of dominating their environment while being chastised by their parents. This splay behavior is disrespectful and shows indifference to those in authority. It is a territorial display that should not be encouraged or tolerated. Now, I want to tie this back to what I was just discussing that in public spaces, men will sit with their knees approximately, I don't know, 12 to 14 inches apart. And if you're a man, you understand why. But women who have been given far greater authority than they've, earned and deserve are offended. And that is what he ties into here is that those in authority feel that they're being disrespected. Well, number one, I don't care that they're feeling disrespected. They don't have to sign up for the draft. Number two, if they need to build a bridge and get over it. But that doesn't stop them from making violent attacks, which ties into body cameras. Keep a body camera so when they punch, you at least know you've got video documentation before you punch back. If you have a child who does this every time he or she is in serious trouble, you need to neutralize this behavior immediately by asking your child to sit up, and if that fails, by nonverbally violating his or her space by sitting next to or standing closely behind him or her. In short order, your child will have a limbic response to your spatial invasion, which will cause him or her to sit up. If you've ever been in basic military training, you're familiar with this. If you allow your child to get away with torso splays during major disagreements, don't be surprised if he or she loses respect for you over time. And why not? By allowing such displays, you are basically saying it's okay to disrespect me. When these kids grow up, they may continue to splay out inappropriately in the workplace when they should be sitting up attentively. There's that old saying, spare the rod, spoil the child, and other related axioms for child rearing. And I think we are seeing what happens to society when those standards aren't maintained. This is not conducive to longevity on the job since it sends a strong negative nonverbal message of disrespect for authority. Next next subchapter section. Puffing up the chest. Humans, like many other creatures, including some lizards, birds, dogs, and our fellow primates, puff up their chest when trying to establish territorial dominance. Givens, 1998 through 2007. Watch two people who are angry with each other. They will puff out their chest just like silverback gorillas. Although it may seem almost comical when we see others do it, puffing of the chest should not be ignored. Um, Yeah, this is massive oxygen intake if you're not aware. This ties into what I said in the previous video about the outstretching your arms in a as if you're being on a cross, and then rapidly moving them back and forth together to increase blood flow. This puffing of the chest is the same thing. You do this to pull in as much oxygen as possible before taking an action. So let's see. Puffing of the chest should not be ignored because observation has shown that when people are about to strike someone, their chest will puff out. Okay. Yeah. So this ties in with the arm movement that I described in the previous video. You see this on the school grounds when kids are about to fight. It can also be seen among professional boxers as they goad each other verbally before a major fight, chest out, leaning into each other, proclaiming their certitude of winning. Smack talk. The great Muhammad Ali did this better than anyone during pre-fight events. Not only was he threatening, he was also funny, all part of the show, which made for good theater and, of course, ticket sales. As a related note, if you haven't seen the movie, the John Carpenter movie, They Live, with former Portland wrestling star, the late great Roddy Piper, you got to watch it because apparently Roddy Piper had a thing for wanting to write little catchphrases as something to use as filler or when he was in the ring, and so he took them to Carpenter where They Live, and that's where we got the "Mama don't like no tattletales" and the very infamous "I'm here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum." Those are being two of the most notable out of the movie, as well as others. But this ties into the Muhammad Ali, smack talking that's being described. So not only was he threatening, he was also funny, all parts of the show, which made for good theater and, of course, ticket sales. Bearing the torso, the next sub chapter topic. Sometimes in street fights, people getting ready to strike out at an opponent will disrobe, removing an article of clothing like a shirt or hat. Whether this is done simply to flex one's muscles, to protect the discarded clothing, or to rob the opponent of some type of hold he can use to his advantage, no one is sure. I think it's situational, depending on the individual and what it is that the one is wearing. Let's see. In any case, if you should get into an argument with someone and he or she takes off a hat, shirt, or other article of clothing, most likely a fight is in the offing. Next sub-chapter topic, breathing, behavior, and the torso. When a person is under stress, the chest may be seen to heave or expand and contract rapidly. When the limbic system is aroused and engaged for flight or fight, the body attempts to take in as much oxygen as possible, either by breathing more deeply or by panting. The stressed individual's chest is heaving because the limbic brain is saying, potential problem, step up oxygen consumption in case we suddenly have to escape or fight. When you see this type of nonverbal behavior in an otherwise healthy person, you should consider why he or she is so stressed. Next sub-chapter topic is shoulder shrugs, and we have the element card here that's been up for the last couple minutes for shrug, and you can see it's universal around the world and among men and women, boys and girls, and the deception is not likely. It's in the neck area. There is no conflicting behavior. The physiological is fear. The single wrap is the amplifying gesture, and the palms exposed is the confirming gesture. All right, so shoulder shrugs. Full and slight shoulder shrugs can mean a lot in context. When the boss asks an employee, "Do you know anything about this customer's complaint?" and the employee answers no while giving a half shrug, chances are the speaker is not committed to what was just said. An honest and true response will cause both shoulders to rise sharply and equally. Expect, expect people to give full, high shoulder shrugs when they confidently support what they are saying. There is nothing wrong with saying, I don't know, while both shoulders rise up toward the ear. Um, as discussed previously, this is a gravity-defying behavior that normally signifies the person is comfortable and confident with his or her actions. If you see a person's shoulders only partially rise, or if only one shoulder rises, chances are the individual is not limbically committed to what he or she is saying and is probably being evasive or even deceptive. All right. Think about it this way. You've seen it or you've done it, and that is throw a baseball, softball, something to that effect, with the half-hearted effort versus the full intensity of somebody who is very focused on winning the game. That's use that as an analogy, as an example of what it is that's being described in the shrug. If it's a half shrug or it's just kind of limp, weak, whatever, you know, something's not right. It's things that people are confident in are going to be done assertively. Box insert number 26. One time you don't want the shirt off his back. Years ago, I witnessed two neighbors verbally sparring over a sprinkler system that I had accidentally sprayed a freshly waxed vehicle. As things escalated, one of the neighbors started unbuttoning his shirt. It was then that I knew fists were going to fly. Sure enough, the shirt came off and the chest bumping began between them. This was a mere precursor to the punching which soon followed. It seemed incredible that grown men would fight over water spots on a car. What was really remarkable, however, was the chest bumping between the two guys as though they were gorillas. It was actually embarrassing to watch them engage in such a ludicrous torso display. It's just something that shouldn't happen. As an anecdote, I've observed that August brings out an odd thing in people along this line. It's that, the dog days of summer, the doldrums, the summer doldrums. It's that, at least in my region, what happens is we get stable air masses, which keeps pollutants in our local area, because a stable air mass means that it is hazy. It's not, no fresh air is really coming in, and therefore the contaminants, pollutants are building up. And that's not just road stuff. It's tree, animal dander, people dander, as well as uh, technology, stuff. And I don't know if it's the air mass movement being stable, the lack of fresh air, the lack of air movement, the concentration of contaminants, but something happens that causes people to become more hypersensitive and reactive, even verbally and violently at times. All right, so turtling, we're going to cover that here in a little bit, but let's go over it. It's also um, universal as the previous one for the shrug, and it's listed as unsure, and it's listed as BN. So let's see what BN is. All right, so B in the conflicting behavior is brow narrowing, and brow narrowing is with your eyes, your eyebrows, where you pull them together as if you're trying to express the facial expression that you're trying to project is visual doubt, or challenge. All right, so that's in the eyes, and it's also a universal uh, display. All right, so that's all we're going to cover for this part. We're going to pick up with weak shoulder displays when I come back at the next video.